Sometimes the smallest steps lead to the greatest discoveries. Ethan whispered to himself as he tightened the straps on Scout's harness, the snow crunching beneath his worn boots and the crisp morning air carrying the faint scent of pine and frost. The forest around them seemed alive, each branch coated in glittering ice, bending slightly under the weight, the wind weaving through them like a soft melody only the trees could understand. Scout's amber eyes glimmered with alertness, his ears twitching at every subtle rustle, every distant crack of shifting wood or distant animal. Ethan, 40 years old, broad-shouldered with a jaw shadowed by days of unshaven stubble, ran a gloved hand over his flannel jacket, frayed at the elbows, feeling the fabric stiff with frost. The cabin he sought lay hidden somewhere beyond this maze of evergreens, a structure half swallowed by the mountain, forgotten by time, whispered about by the few locals who still remembered old trails. As Scout tugged slightly, Ethan followed, boots sinking into snow that reached mid-calf, leaving a trail of crisp imprints behind them. The sunlight broke pale and fragile through the canopy, catching on the frost and turning it into a field of tiny diamonds, while shadows stretched and curled around the trunks like ghostly fingers. Every inhale brought the chill of winter mixed with the earthy tang of pine needles, a scent that carried both solitude and the faint promise of life beyond the emptiness of isolation. Scout's paw prints skittered ahead, a guide through the labyrinth, and Ethan felt a pulse of familiarity in the way the dog moved, trained instincts converging with a quiet intuition that seemed almost supernatural. Somewhere ahead, through a clearing barely wide enough to see, the muted outline of a cabin emerged, walls of weathered gray stone blending into the mountain itself, windows deep and narrow like eyes carved from the rock. Dust clung to the glass, snow clung to the eaves, and a faint plume of smoke from an old chimney wavered in the cold air, a sign that the place had not been completely abandoned. Ethan approached cautiously, each step a dialogue with the forest, listening to the subtle creaks and sighs, the whispers of ice settling, and the soft pad of Scout's paws behind him. He crouched slightly, scanning the facade, noting the rusted metal plate above the door, stamped with faint numbers and letters, and the way the frost seemed to spiral across the stone like a message written by the mountain itself. The dog's low growl broke the silence, subtle and restrained, a signal Ethan had learned to trust beyond words. And together they moved closer, the crunch of snow underfoot harmonizing with the faint hum of wind slipping through cracks in the cabin walls. Ethan's gloved fingers traced the texture of the door, rough and cold, and he inhaled deeply, letting the weight of solitude and anticipation settle over him. Scout pressed close, head tilting as if listening to whispers beneath the floor, beneath the very bones of the cabin, a rhythm imperceptible to human senses but perfectly clear to him. The light shifted as clouds drifted overhead, catching on the frost and the dog's sleek coat, casting fleeting shadows that danced across the stone like spirits marking the path. Ethan felt a strange warmth despite the cold, a sensation of being exactly where he was meant to be, guided by a companion whose loyalty and instinct had brought him here through snow, silence, and the whispering woods. With a quiet breath, he placed his hand on the door, the rough metal biting his skin, and listened. Somewhere beneath the cabin, Scout's ears twitched. A subtle vibration ran through the floor, and for a moment, Ethan held his breath, feeling that the forest, the mountain, and the dog had conspired to lead him to a moment that might change everything. The door creaked softly as Ethan pushed it open, revealing a long hallway lined with wooden beams that groaned under the weight of years and frost. Dust lay thick across the floorboards, catching the pale light that filtered through the narrow windows, each pane streaked with ice and snow. Scout padded ahead with measured steps, nostrils flaring, amber eyes scanning every corner as though he understood the silent history of the cabin better than Ethan ever could. The air smelled of cold stone, aged wood, and the faint tang of minerals carried through the cracks in the walls, a scent that spoke of time suspended and secrets waiting patiently. Ethan adjusted his gloves and ran his hand along the rough wooden banister, feeling the texture of years, the echoes of hands long gone. Every footstep produced a soft crunch of frost-laden dust, a rhythm that mingled with the distant whisper of wind weaving through the surrounding forest. As he moved deeper into the cabin, he noticed subtle anomalies. A floorboard slightly raised, a shadow where none should fall, a faint hum that seemed almost musical but originated from nowhere in particular. Scout paused, ears perked, and pressed his paw against the floor again, a gentle but insistent signal. Ethan knelt, feeling vibrations barely perceptible beneath his fingertips, a slow, steady pulse that hinted at something hidden below. He rose, breath forming small clouds in the cold air, and traced his eyes across the walls, taking in the faded markings, the chipped paint, and the way the sunlight played upon the dust motes, turning them into tiny, hovering specters of memory. The cabin felt alive in its stillness, as if it held its breath in anticipation of the discovery to come. Scout moved to the far end, nose brushing against a cracked panel, tail swaying slowly, eyes locked on Ethan as though to say, "This is the place." Ethan approached the panel carefully, prying it loose with gloved hands to reveal a small, hidden compartment beneath. Inside lay a bundle wrapped in aged cloth, tied with a string that had yellowed over decades, and the faint scent of cedar and earth emanated from it. He untied it slowly, revealing a collection of objects, a leather-bound journal, yellowed papers, and a small carved wooden box. The journal was brittle to the touch, pages filled with handwriting that flowed with care and purpose, chronicling lives once intertwined with the cabin, the forest, and the mountain itself. Ethan sat on the cold floor, Scout curling beside him, and began to read, the words drawing him into a world of forgotten moments, whispered lessons, and quiet acts of kindness that had shaped the destiny of this hidden place. The light shifted subtly as the afternoon sun moved west, casting long, golden beams through the frosted windows, illuminating the cabin with a warmth that belied the winter chill outside. Outside, the wind murmured through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and snow, wrapping around the cabin like a protective cloak, as if nature itself approved of the journey that had brought Ethan and Scout here. Hours passed unnoticed as Ethan continued to examine the contents, discovering maps that led to small clearings, letters describing past lives, and carefully preserved mementos that spoke of resilience, hope, and the quiet, enduring presence of love. Scout nudged Ethan gently, his eyes imploring him to see what lay beneath the floorboards beyond the panel. Ethan rose, moved to the spot, and discovered a trapdoor, its hinges rusted but functional, hiding a staircase that spiraled down into darkness. The air that escaped as he opened it was cool and earthy, carrying the scent of stone and something indefinably old, a promise of secrets untouched for generations. He descended slowly, Scout at his side, the only sounds their synchronized steps and the occasional creak of timber adjusting to their weight. At the bottom, the space opened into a subterranean chamber, walls lined with stone, the floor smooth and even, illuminated faintly by small openings above. A soft, otherworldly glow filled the room, bouncing off the surfaces, revealing shelves filled with carefully arranged artifacts, books, carved figures, and objects whose purpose was lost to time, but whose presence exuded significance. Ethan felt a deep stirring within him, a sense of awe and belonging, as though the cabin, the chamber, and the mountain had been waiting for him, for someone worthy of understanding the stories and treasures it held. Scout remained alert, occasionally sniffing the air or shifting closer to Ethan, as though guarding him from the weight of the past and guiding him gently toward the revelation that would forever alter the quiet rhythm of his life. The chamber seemed to breathe in their presence, shadows dancing across the walls with the subtle movement of the light, and Ethan understood that this place was more than a hidden cabin. It was a testament to patience, resilience, and the quiet miracles that come to those who follow faithfully, listen intently, and trust in the guidance of loyal companions. Ethan carefully stepped deeper into the subterranean chamber, the faint glow revealing intricate carvings etched into the stone walls, patterns that seemed almost alive under the soft illumination. Scout moved ahead with precision, sniffing each corner, ears perked, tail low but steady, guiding Ethan with instincts honed over years of silent communication. The air was cool and earthy, carrying the scent of moss, aged wood, and a hint of cedar from the preserved objects lining the shelves. Each artifact seemed to hold a story, and Ethan felt an inexplicable connection, as though the room itself recognized the weight of his presence and his history. He ran, his gloved hand over a row of meticulously stacked books, their spines cracked but intact, the paper yellowed and fragile, exuding the quiet dignity of knowledge patiently awaiting discovery. Scout nudged a small chest with his nose, the wood polished smooth by careful hands decades before, and Ethan bent down to examine it, finding it locked with a simple clasp, yet it radiated an unspoken promise of significance. The chamber itself was unexpectedly large, vaulted above with stone arches that echoed the faintest movement, casting soft shadows that shifted with the ambient light seeping through tiny crevices in the rock. Ethan felt a sense of reverence, an acknowledgement that this place had endured storms, seasons, and years of solitude, yet remained a sanctuary for what was meant to be preserved. He carefully unwrapped an aged cloth on a nearby table to reveal a collection of letters, tied together with ribbon now fragile with age. The ink had faded to sepia tones, but the words spoke clearly, accounts of hope, resilience, and quiet acts of kindness left behind by hands that had known both hardship and joy. Scout sat beside him, eyes flicking between the letters and Ethan's face, a silent companion sharing in the unfolding discovery, the bond between man and dog strengthened by the gravity of the moment. A faint hum began to rise, subtle but persistent, and Ethan realized it emanated from a series of hollowed stones in the corner of the chamber. As he approached, the vibration grew, resonating through the floor and into his boots, a steady rhythm that reminded him of the precise timing drills he had once used in service, now echoing in a space built for preservation and reflection rather than urgency. The sensation stirred memories long buried, moments of patience, endurance, and the quiet understanding that every act of attention mattered, no matter how small. Scout pawed lightly at the floor, guiding Ethan to a stone panel set slightly apart from the rest, worn edges smooth from time. Ethan pressed his hands against it, feeling the pulse beneath the surface, a rhythm not mechanical but deliberate, alive with intention. Slowly, the panel shifted, revealing a narrow passage descending further into shadow. He glanced at Scout, whose ears twitched, eyes steady, conveying a calm assurance that this was right, that this step was meant to be taken. As they descended, the temperature dropped slightly, and the smell of earth grew richer, mingling with the faint aroma of aged parchment and polished wood. At the bottom, the passage opened into a hidden room, where sunlight filtered through a narrow shaft, illuminating a collection of objects that seemed almost otherworldly in their careful arrangement. Sculptures, delicate instruments, and containers holding materials that suggested ingenuity, preservation, and thoughtfulness beyond measure. Ethan moved among them slowly, reverently, noticing the meticulous care in their placement, the sense that someone had intentionally created this space as a repository for memory, history, and perhaps guidance for those who would come after. Scout lingered near his side, alert but calm, tail gently swishing the floor, a constant reminder of loyalty, vigilance, and companionship. The room seemed to breathe softly with them, shadows shifting, light dancing across surfaces, and Ethan realized that every step he had taken, every decision that had led him here, was part of a quiet unfolding of purpose. He reached for a small wooden box, feeling the cool, smooth surface, and opened it to reveal items wrapped in cloth, each piece carefully catalogued, each bearing the essence of lives once lived, lessons intended to endure. A gentle warmth filled him, not from the room but from the recognition that he was standing in a place designed for discovery, reflection, and the quiet miracles that follow patience and fidelity. Scout pressed closer, nudging Ethan's hand as if confirming that this was a moment of grace, the culmination of instinct, loyalty, and the guiding touch of unseen hands that had preserved this chamber for exactly this time, for exactly this visitor. Ethan carefully set the wooden box on a nearby stone ledge, its contents spilling slightly, revealing carefully preserved trinkets, photographs, and small mechanical devices whose purpose was not immediately clear, but radiated an aura of careful attention and intentionality. Scout paced slowly beside him, nose to the ground, ears high, scanning the chamber, as though he could sense the history embedded in every stone and wooden beam. The soft glow from the narrow shaft above illuminated the delicate patterns etched into the walls, casting gentle shadows that shifted as the sun moved westward, painting the chamber with a tapestry of light and quiet movement. Ethan lifted one of the photographs, the image of a young family in front of the very cabin he now explored, smiles frozen in time. The texture of the paper fragile beneath his fingers. Each photograph told a story of ordinary lives that had passed through these walls, moments of laughter, of simple meals shared by candlelight, and of the natural rhythm of days marked by sunlight and seasons. Scout nudged Ethan gently, leading him toward a series of drawers built into the stone wall, their faces polished smooth, bearing the faint patina of age. Ethan opened them carefully, finding journals, letters, and hand-carved objects, each wrapped in soft cloth, preserving the integrity of the contents. He leafed through a journal, the handwriting elegant and precise, chronicling daily observations of the forest, the changing seasons, and the small acts of kindness extended to neighbors, travelers, and creatures alike. The words resonated with Ethan, reminding him of the quiet discipline and attentiveness he had learned during his years of service, and how even the smallest actions could ripple outward in ways unseen, yet profoundly felt. Scout shifted closer to the edge of the chamber, where a faint vibration ran beneath the floor, subtle and regular, like a heartbeat or a signal encoded into the very stone. Ethan knelt, pressing his palm against the surface, feeling the rhythm and marveling at its persistence, a gentle reminder that beneath the quiet surface of life, patterns of care and intention endured. As he explored further, he discovered a small alcove, hidden behind a false panel, containing a collection of handcrafted models of the cabin and surrounding forest, each detailed with remarkable precision, as if capturing not just the physical layout, but the essence of the place itself. Ethan traced his fingers lightly over the miniature trees and structures, imagining the hands that had taken such care to create them, and feeling a connection that transcended time, a bridge between past and present. Scout rested his head against Ethan's leg, offering comfort and reassurance, a living presence attuned to the subtle energy of the room. The air was filled with the scent of aged wood, earth, and faint traces of lavender and cedar, creating an atmosphere of calm reflection. Ethan moved slowly, methodically, guided by intuition and Scout's quiet signals, each discovery building a sense of wonder and deep respect for the lives that had shaped this hidden sanctuary. Outside, the wind whispered through the pines, carrying flakes of snow that caught the light as they fell, each one shimmering, like a tiny prism before settling on the ground. The cabin, the chamber, and the forest beyond seemed to exist in a delicate balance, holding their secrets with patience and grace until the right hands arrived to uncover them. Ethan felt a profound sense of responsibility, understanding that he was now part of a continuum of care and observation, entrusted with the stories, lessons, and quiet treasures of those who had come before him. Scout lifted his head, ears attentive, and Ethan followed his gaze to a faint shimmer along the back wall, suggesting another hidden compartment or passage, a promise that the exploration was not yet complete and that each step forward would continue to reveal the depth and richness of this extraordinary place. The moment was serene and filled with anticipation, a delicate interplay of light, shadow, history, and the unwavering loyalty of a companion who understood more than words could convey, guiding Ethan through a discovery that would leave a lasting imprint on his life. Ethan carefully examined the small, narrow passage at the back of the hidden chamber, noting the way the stone walls curved inward, creating a gentle tunnel that seemed to lead deeper into the mountain. Scout moved ahead with quiet precision, paws brushing lightly against the cool stone floor, ears alert to any subtle changes in the air or the faintest sound that might signal a hidden detail. The air smelled of earth, cold stone, and faint traces of cedar, carrying with it a sense of age and preservation, as if the mountain itself was holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. Ethan followed closely, gloved hands brushing against the rough walls, feeling the uneven surfaces and the subtle vibrations that hinted at spaces beyond the immediate corridor. Light from the chamber above faded gradually as they moved further into the tunnel, replaced by a soft, ambient glow that seemed to emanate from the stone itself, creating a delicate illumination that revealed intricate patterns etched by time and careful craftsmanship. Every step produced a gentle echo, blending with the distant whisper of wind passing through unseen crevices, and Ethan felt a quiet thrill of discovery mixed with reverence for the history embedded in the mountain. Scout paused occasionally, nose to the ground, tail swaying with slow, deliberate movements, guiding Ethan toward a small archway barely visible in the dim light. Beyond it lay a secondary chamber, larger and more open, with stone shelves lining the walls and a low wooden platform at its center, dusted with frost and the residue of years of neglect. Ethan moved toward the platform, noticing the meticulous arrangement of objects, small wooden carvings, bundles of letters tied with faded ribbon, and containers holding powders, herbs, and other materials whose purposes were not immediately clear but suggested careful, deliberate preservation. Each item seemed to carry its own story, a fragment of a life once lived, patiently waiting to be understood. He knelt beside one of the bundles of letters, lifting the delicate papers with care, reading lines that chronicled daily observations of the surrounding forest, the changing of seasons, and quiet acts of kindness extended to travelers, neighbors, and even the wildlife that frequented the area. The words resonated with Ethan, reminding him of the patience, discipline, and attentiveness that had guided his own life and service, and he felt a connection to the past that transcended time. Scout nudged his hand gently, eyes fixed on a small alcove at the far end of the chamber, indicating that the next discovery lay there. Ethan approached and found a wooden chest, its surface worn smooth by the touch of countless hands over decades, and carefully lifted the lid to reveal a collection of journals, small hand-carved objects, and documents bound in soft leather. The scent of aged paper and polished wood filled the air, mingling with the cool mineral notes of the stone, creating an atmosphere of calm reflection and anticipation. Each journal contained meticulous entries describing not just the physical environment, but the personal reflections, hopes, and intentions of the person who had cared for this hidden place. Ethan traced his fingers over the inked lines, absorbing the sense of purpose and attention to detail that had preserved these lives and moments, realizing that every object and note was a testament to endurance, care, and the subtle miracles of everyday life. Scout rested beside him, the warmth of his presence a grounding force as Ethan continued to explore the chamber, moving from shelf to shelf, uncovering maps, diagrams, and tools that suggested careful planning and a deep understanding of the surrounding environment. The chamber, though silent, seemed vibrant with the echoes of past activity, a living repository of memory and wisdom. As Ethan paused to take in the full scope of the space, a sense of profound respect and quiet all washed over him, understanding that he had been brought here not just to discover objects, but to bear witness to a legacy of careful stewardship, intention, and the enduring impact of small, thoughtful actions preserved across time. The soft light shifted as the afternoon sun moved through the mountain, casting long, delicate beams across the stone floor, illuminating the intricate carvings and the carefully arranged artifacts, and Ethan felt a deep sense of connection, purpose, and the quiet miracle of being exactly where he was meant to be, guided by Scout's unwavering loyalty and instinctive understanding of the hidden paths within the mountain. Ethan traced his fingers along the edges of an intricately carved wooden box, the surface smooth and cool beneath his gloves, feeling the faint grooves where time and hands long past had shaped it with care and intention. Scout pressed close, resting his head against Ethan's leg, ears twitching as subtle vibrations echoed through the stone floor beneath them, a rhythm that seemed to pulse with the very life of the mountain. The chamber around them was bathed in a soft, ethereal light filtering through small crevices above, illuminating shelves lined with carefully preserved objects, journals, sketches, handcrafted tools, and small containers that hinted at meticulous planning and thoughtfulness. Ethan lifted a journal, its leather cover cracked but intact, and opened it to pages filled with handwriting that spoke of daily life in the cabin, observations of the surrounding forest, and reflections on human connection, patience, and the quiet impact of small acts of kindness. He read each line carefully, absorbing the intentions and insights of the person who had taken such care to chronicle their existence, feeling a resonance with his own experiences of service, discipline, and reflection. Scout's amber eyes flicked to a corner where a subtle glow hinted at another hidden space, and Ethan followed, discovering a narrow panel that concealed a small passage leading deeper into the rock. He knelt, feeling the cool stone under his palms, and pressed gently, noting the way the vibration beneath the floor shifted slightly as Scout nudged the panel with his paw, a silent cue that something significant awaited. The passage opened to reveal a secondary chamber, larger and more open, with low stone shelves and a central platform that bore additional artifacts and objects arranged with deliberate care. Ethan carefully explored the shelves, finding hand-carved figurines, bundles of letters tied with delicate ribbon, and small instruments of precise construction, each exuding a quiet sense of purpose. He paused to examine a wooden model of the cabin and surrounding forest, noting the meticulous attention to detail, from the tiny carved trees to the precise placement of windows and doors, a testament to the patience and skill of its creator. Scout shifted his weight and nudged Ethan's hand, prompting him to lift a small lid that revealed an assortment of objects preserved in cloth. Carefully folded maps, bundles of notes, and tools whose functions suggested deliberate and thoughtful use. The air was crisp and carried the subtle scent of earth and aged wood, blending with the faint aroma of cedar and lavender, creating an atmosphere of calm reflection. Ethan took a deep breath, letting the quiet of the chamber, the gentle glow of light, and the loyal presence of Scout fill him with a sense of reverence and purpose. He realized that every object, every note, and every carefully maintained detail was part of a continuum of care, a legacy of attention, patience, and quiet miracles that had been preserved through decades. Scout's ears twitched at each subtle movement, alert and attuned, guiding Ethan through the space as though he understood the deeper significance of each artifact and the history that had led them here. The interplay of light and shadow across the walls created shifting patterns that seemed almost alive, dancing over carved surfaces and gently illuminating the contents of each shelf, highlighting the thoughtfulness and care that had gone into preserving this hidden sanctuary. Ethan moved deliberately, allowing himself to absorb the weight of history and the intention behind each placement, understanding that he was not merely discovering objects, but bearing witness to a continuum of purpose, observation, and care. The moment felt sacred, the silence filled with meaning, and Ethan sensed that every step he had taken, guided by Scout's unwavering instincts, had been leading him to this space of understanding, reflection, and quiet awe. Outside, the faint sounds of wind through the pines reached the chamber in soft, irregular pulses, mingling with the subtle creak of the stone and timber, creating a symphony of life and memory that Ethan felt resonating within him. He knelt beside Scout, the dogs, warmth pressing against him, and for a long moment simply observed the room, the artifacts, and the light, understanding that the chamber was a testament to the enduring power of care, loyalty, and the small, deliberate actions that create lasting impact across generations. Ethan carefully moved toward the center of the hidden chamber, his breath forming small clouds in the cold, still air, while Scout lingered close by, ears swiveling to catch the faintest shift in sound or movement. The soft glow from above revealed intricate carvings along the walls, symbols that seemed to tell stories of patience, devotion, and the quiet rhythm of lives long past, and Ethan felt a profound sense of connection as he traced them with his gloved fingers. Each step he took produced a muted echo, blending with the occasional faint hum that seemed to emanate from the stones themselves, a rhythm that matched the steady pulse in his chest. Scout moved silently ahead, pausing to nudge a small wooden panel with his nose, signaling Ethan toward another hidden space, a subtle vibration running beneath the floor that hinted at something extraordinary waiting to be uncovered. Ethan knelt to inspect the area, brushing away dust and frost, revealing the edge of a trapdoor that had been expertly concealed, its hinges aged but still functional, and he felt a quiet thrill at the thought of what lay beneath. Slowly, with Scout at his side, he lifted the trapdoor, revealing a narrow staircase carved directly into the stone, spiraling downward into shadow and mystery. The air that rose from the passage was cool and carried the earthy scent of stone and minerals, mingled with the faint aroma of aged wood, creating an atmosphere that was both calming and electrifying in its promise of discovery. Ethan descended carefully, each step deliberate, guided by the soft padding of Scout's paws just behind him, their synchronized movement echoing in the narrow passage. At the bottom, the passage opened into a vast subterranean room, higher than he had expected, with stone walls lined with shelves holding carefully arranged artifacts, journals, and bundles of letters tied with delicate ribbon. The soft light filtering from above revealed the meticulous organization of each object, the care that had been taken to preserve these remnants of the past, and Ethan felt an overwhelming respect for the person who had dedicated so much attention to this hidden space. He ran his hand over the shelves, touching the spines of the journals, feeling the worn leather and the texture of the pages beneath, imagining the hands that had written each entry, the careful thought that had gone into recording every observation, every reflection, every small act of kindness. Scout nudged a small wooden box toward Ethan, and he opened it to discover an assortment of personal items, a carved figure, letters, and maps showing paths and clearings in the surrounding forest, each annotated with meticulous care, a silent testament to thoughtfulness, observation, and quiet guardianship. The gentle hum beneath the floor seemed to pulse in harmony with his own heartbeat, and he realized that every step he had taken, guided by Scout's instinct, had led him to a space where history, memory, and intention converged. As Ethan explored further, he discovered a shallow alcove tucked into a corner of the chamber, containing a collection of small instruments, tools, and delicate mechanisms whose purpose was not immediately clear, but whose craftsmanship conveyed extraordinary patience and precision. He lifted one of the instruments, turning it carefully in his hands, marveling at the ingenuity and thought that had gone into its creation, the attention to detail speaking across decades. Scout moved closer, resting his head against Ethan's leg, the warmth and steady presence of the dog providing comfort and grounding in the midst of the extraordinary space. Light shifted subtly as the afternoon sun progressed, casting long, delicate beams across the stone floor, illuminating the carvings, the artifacts, and the careful arrangement of each object, revealing their beauty and significance. Ethan felt a quiet sense of awe and gratitude, understanding that he was part of a continuum of care and observation, entrusted with the legacy of a space built to preserve memory, intention, and the quiet miracles of everyday life. He sat on the cold stone floor for a moment, allowing Scout's steady breathing and the gentle hum of the room to wash over him, a silent acknowledgement of the loyalty, guidance, and companionship that had brought him here, to a place where the past and present coexisted in perfect balance, and where discovery and reflection blended seamlessly into a moment of profound connection and understanding. Ethan's gaze swept across the chamber, taking in the arrangement of objects with a mixture of wonder and reverence, the soft light from the narrow shaft above casting shadows that danced like whispers along the walls. Scout pressed close, tail brushing Ethan's leg, ears attentive, the subtle rise and fall of his breathing matching the rhythm of the quiet vibrations beneath the stone floor. Ethan carefully approached a low shelf lined with glass jars, each filled with powders, herbs, and small preserved specimens, their surfaces reflecting the soft glow and hinting at the meticulous care of the person who had collected them. He lifted a jar, examining the contents through the crystal-clear glass, noting the delicate textures, the gentle colors, and the sense of purpose imbued in each object. Scout circled the chamber once, sniffing carefully, and returned to Ethan's side, nudging a small bundle tied with faded ribbon toward him. He untied it slowly, revealing a series of letters and hand-drawn maps, the paper delicate and fragrant with age. The maps depicted not only the surrounding forest and cabin but also paths, clearings, and landmarks that suggested careful observation and an intimate knowledge of the land. The letters, written with a steady, elegant hand, recounted daily routines, reflections on the passage of time, and the quiet acts of kindness extended to travelers, neighbors, and creatures of the forest. Ethan felt a deep resonance with the words, imagining the life that had unfolded here, the care and attention to detail that had preserved these memories, and the sense of continuity that bound the past to the present. He moved to another shelf, discovering carved wooden figures depicting people, animals, and structures, each rendered with painstaking accuracy and a subtle warmth that suggested both affection and reverence. Scout pawed lightly at a stone panel, ears flicking, and Ethan followed his cue, finding a hidden latch that opened a shallow drawer containing small tools and implements, neatly organized and maintained despite the years. The craftsmanship, precision, and intention evident in each piece communicated a dedication to purpose, an understanding that even the smallest acts, when done with care, could endure and leave an impact across time. Ethan set the items back carefully, breathing in the combined sense of stone, wood, and the faint traces of herbs, feeling a calm awareness of the layers of history, memory, and intention surrounding him. He knelt beside Scout, observing the dog's steady presence, the alertness in his amber eyes, and the gentle way he shifted closer as if sharing in the understanding of the space. Sunlight shifted through the narrow crevice above, illuminating the chamber with a warmth that softened the cool tones of the stone and highlighting the textures, carvings, and delicate arrangements that spoke of patience and devotion. Ethan ran his fingers lightly along the floor, feeling the vibrations that had guided him to this space, realizing that each hum, each subtle pulse of the stone was part of a deliberate design, a message of continuity, observation, and attentive care. He paused to absorb the atmosphere fully, the soft light, the quiet presence of Scout, and the deliberate arrangement of objects all combining to create a sense of reverence and connection. Every artifact, every line of text, every subtle pattern carved into stone, or would convey the enduring importance of attention, patience, and loyalty, principles that Ethan had come to live by and now witnessed preserved in physical form. Scout shifted slightly, nuzzling Ethan's hand, and he reached out to gently stroke the dog's head, feeling the bond between them deepen in the quiet majesty of the chamber. Outside, the forest whispered with the wind through the pines, the sunlight catching on frost and ice, sending tiny reflections dancing across the walls, illuminating the chamber with a gentle, ethereal glow that seemed to validate the journey that had brought them here. Ethan understood that he was standing in a space carefully created to honor memory, intention, and quiet acts of devotion, a sanctuary of reflection and preservation where the past spoke clearly to those willing to listen, and Scout's faithful presence reminded him that companionship, intuition, and loyalty were the guiding threads that had led him to this extraordinary moment. Ethan stepped back from the collection of artifacts, taking a slow, deep breath as Scout settled at his side, the dog's warmth and steady presence grounding him in the quiet majesty of the chamber. The soft light from the crevice above shifted with the movement of the sun, casting long, golden beams across the stone floor and illuminating the carved patterns that lined the walls, each telling a story of patience, care, and devotion. Ethan ran his gloved fingers along a row of journals, tracing the lines of carefully inscribed handwriting that chronicled years of observation, reflection, and small acts of kindness, feeling a profound connection to the person who had preserved these memories with such diligence. Scout nudged Ethan gently toward a low platform in the center of the room, where a bundle of objects lay partially covered with a cloth, the delicate scent of cedar and aged paper rising to meet him. Ethan lifted the cloth carefully, revealing maps, letters, and carved tokens, each representing moments of consideration and planning, markers of a life dedicated to observation and quiet service. The maps depicted the surrounding forest, the cabin, and hidden clearings, annotated with notes about the land, its seasons, and its creatures, reflecting a deep understanding of the environment and an attentiveness that had endured across decades. Ethan opened a journal from the bundle, reading passages that described simple joys, small triumphs, and deliberate acts of kindness that had shaped the lives of those who had passed through this space. The words resonated with his own experiences of service, responsibility, and patience, and he felt a growing sense of reverence for the legacy preserved here. Scout moved slowly around the chamber, nose to the ground, ears alert, as if sensing the weight of the history surrounding them, occasionally pausing to press a paw against the floor, guiding Ethan's attention to subtle vibrations that hinted at further hidden compartments. Ethan followed the cues, discovering a narrow panel concealed in the stone, which he opened to reveal a shallow alcove containing additional objects, meticulously arranged and cared for: small instruments, hand-carved figures, and carefully bound notes. Each item reflected thoughtfulness and precision, conveying the intention and attention to detail of someone who had understood the enduring significance of their actions. The chamber itself seemed alive with quiet energy, shadows shifting gently across the walls as the light moved, and Ethan felt the hum of life and memory that infused the space, connecting him to the past and to the purpose that had guided the creation of this hidden sanctuary. He knelt beside Scout, feeling the loyalty and calm assurance of his companion, understanding that their journey together had led him to a place of reflection, discovery, and subtle, enduring miracles. The smell of earth, stone, and aged wood enveloped him, mingling with faint traces of herbs and cedar, creating an atmosphere of serene focus and gentle awe. Ethan continued to explore each shelf, each artifact, and each bundle of papers with careful attention, aware that every step he took, guided by Scout's instinct and the quiet signals of the chamber, was part of an unfolding experience designed to teach, to preserve, and to inspire. Outside, the distant wind whispered through the pines, carrying the faint scent of snow and frost, and the light shifted, casting fleeting patterns across the artifacts and the carved walls, illuminating their intricate beauty and the care with which they had been maintained. Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude and connection, recognizing that he had been brought to this space to witness a legacy of attentiveness, patience, and quiet miracles, to bear witness to the lives that had unfolded here, and to understand that every small act, preserved with care and intention, could resonate across time. Scout leaned into him, warm and steady, and Ethan allowed himself a moment of stillness, absorbing the harmony of light, shadow, history, and loyalty, a quiet affirmation that he was exactly where he needed to be, and that the chamber, with all of its preserved secrets and thoughtful details, had become a place of reflection, learning, and profound emotional resonance. Ethan carefully moved through the chamber once more, absorbing every detail, every object, and every subtle vibration that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. Scout padded quietly beside him, tail low and ears alert, guiding Ethan with the intuitive sense that had never failed him before. The sunlight from the narrow crevice above had shifted, sending golden rays that reflected off polished surfaces and illuminated the intricate carvings etched into the stone walls, each pattern telling a story of patience, care, and quiet devotion. Ethan reached a low wooden table covered with bundles of papers and small, hand-carved objects, the scent of aged cedar and paper mingling with the cool mineral air, creating a serene and contemplative atmosphere. He carefully unfolded one of the papers, revealing meticulous drawings and notes chronicling the forest, the cabin, and the surrounding terrain, illustrating paths, clearings, and landmarks in a way that conveyed deep knowledge and understanding of the land. Scout shifted slightly, nudging Ethan toward a corner where a narrow panel was set into the wall, almost invisible except for a subtle outline, suggesting another hidden compartment. Ethan pressed against it gently, and with a soft creak, the panel gave way to reveal a shallow alcove containing more preserved items: journals, letters, small carved figures, and delicate instruments, each meticulously arranged and cared for. He lifted a journal with a leather cover cracked from age and read the flowing script inside, recounting daily observations, reflections on life, and the quiet acts of kindness that had been extended to travelers, neighbors, and the creatures of the forest. The words resonated with Ethan, reminding him of his own life of service, patience, and attentiveness, and he felt a profound sense of connection to the person who had preserved this hidden sanctuary with such care. Scout pawed lightly at a stone block near the far wall, ears flicking, and Ethan followed the cue to discover a small trapdoor set into the floor, its hinges rusted but functional. Slowly, he lifted it, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into deeper shadow, the air cooler and carrying the scent of earth and stone. He descended carefully, Scout at his side, The only sounds their synchronized steps and the occasional creak of timber adjusting to weight. At the bottom, the space opened into a hidden room, more expansive than the chambers above, lined with shelves of artifacts, bundles of letters, journals, and small tools arranged with deliberate precision. A soft, ambient light filled the room, revealing the meticulous care taken to preserve these objects over decades. Ethan moved among the shelves, examining carved wooden figures, carefully bound notes, and instruments whose purposes suggested thoughtful planning and ingenuity, marveling at the attention to detail and the dedication to preserving memory and knowledge. Scouts circled the chamber, alert and attentive, occasionally pressing a paw gently against the surface to draw Ethan's attention to subtle vibrations that hinted at even more hidden treasures. Ethan paused to breathe deeply, taking in the combination of scent, light, and texture, feeling a profound sense of awe and gratitude for the legacy preserved in this space. Understanding that each object, each line of writing, and each delicate carving carried the intention and care of someone who had dedicated a lifetime to observation, reflection, and quiet acts of devotion. The air was calm and still, filled with the faint hum of the stone beneath their feet and the gentle, consistent presence of Scout at his side, reminding him that loyalty, attentiveness, and companionship were the guiding threads that had brought him to this extraordinary sanctuary. He walked slowly through the room, absorbing the quiet power of preservation, the resonance of history, and the soft glow that highlighted the beauty of the carvings, letters, and artifacts, knowing that every careful action of the past had created a space where reflection, understanding, and inspiration could endure. Outside, the wind whispered through the pine trees, brushing snowflakes gently against the walls and sending soft, fleeting shadows dancing across the chamber, a natural accompaniment to the human and animal presence that had entered and was now part of the ongoing story. Ethan felt a deep sense of peace, realizing that he was standing in a place designed to teach, preserve, and celebrate the quiet miracles of life. Guided by Scout's unwavering instincts and companionship, fully aware that every discovery in this hidden sanctuary was part of a continuum of care, patience, and enduring purpose that would remain long after they left. Ethan carefully approached the far side of the subterranean chamber, Scout close at his side, tail brushing lightly against his leg, eyes alert to every subtle sound, every vibration that seemed to pulse faintly through the stone floor. The sunlight filtering from above had shifted again, casting long, golden beams that illuminated the carved patterns on the walls and the carefully arranged artifacts, each telling a story of devotion, patience, and quiet observation. He knelt beside a low shelf lined with journals and bundles of letters, picking up a leather-bound notebook whose pages had yellowed with age, the edges slightly curled, and he opened it slowly, inhaling the subtle scent of cedar and paper, feeling the weight of history and intention in his hands. The journal contained detailed sketches of the surrounding forest, annotations of trails, clearings, and landmarks, interwoven with personal reflections on the rhythms of life, the changing seasons, and the small, deliberate acts of kindness extended to those who passed through the area or to the creatures that inhabited it. Scout nudged gently at Ethan's side, urging him to move toward a stone panel in the corner, its outline faint, almost hidden, and Ethan pressed against it with a gloved hand, feeling the subtle vibration beneath, a steady pulse that seemed to beckon him forward. He lifted the panel carefully, revealing a narrow passage descending into shadow, the air cool and earthy, carrying the faint aroma of stone, moss, and aged wood, mingled with traces of cedar from the preserved objects above. Together they moved slowly down the spiral staircase, Scout's padded steps soft and precise, ears flicking to every subtle change in the space around them, guiding Ethan with instinct honed over years of silent communication. At the bottom, they entered a hidden chamber, larger than the previous rooms, with walls lined with stone shelves and a low platform in the center, where a variety of carefully preserved artifacts rested, small carved figures, bundles of notes, journals, and tools arranged with meticulous precision. Ethan walked slowly among the shelves, lifting objects gently, examining them with reverence, appreciating the thought, skill, and patience that had gone into their creation and preservation. Scouts circled the room, occasionally nudging Ethan toward items of interest, his amber eyes reflecting a calm intelligence that seemed to understand the significance of the objects far beyond the superficial. The soft, ambient light highlighted the textures of wood, stone, and paper, casting shifting shadows that made the space feel alive, resonating with the intentions of those who had maintained it across decades. Ethan paused to read a particularly detailed letter, the handwriting precise and careful, recounting observations of the forest, the changing weather, the growth of trees, and the behavior of the wildlife, interlaced with reflections on patience, human kindness, and the subtle ways in which lives could intersect and influence one another. Scout settled beside him, head resting lightly against his leg, and Ethan felt a profound sense of connection to the space, to the person who had curated it, and to the continuum of care and attention that had allowed these stories and artifacts to endure. He moved to a section of the chamber containing delicate instruments and carved objects, each demonstrating extraordinary craftsmanship and attention to detail, evidence of thoughtful preservation and deliberate design. The room seemed to breathe with quiet life, the light shifting to highlight the intricate patterns and the deliberate arrangements, while the faint hum of the stone beneath their feet created a subtle rhythm that Ethan felt resonate within him. Outside, the wind whispered through the pine trees, carrying flakes of snow that brushed the chamber walls and sent small reflections dancing across the floor, illuminating the carvings and objects in an almost ethereal way. Ethan realized that this chamber was not merely a collection of objects, but a testament to patience, loyalty, and quiet miracles, a place where observation, reflection, and thoughtful care had been preserved to inspire and guide those who followed. Scout nudged his hand, reminding Ethan of the loyalty and intuition that had brought them to this space, and Ethan allowed himself a long, steady breath, feeling gratitude, awe, and the profound understanding that he was witnessing a legacy of careful attention, intention, and enduring purpose that had waited decades for someone to recognize and honor it. Ethan slowly stood in the center of the subterranean chamber, Scout resting at his side, the dogs breathing steady, amber eyes scanning the room as though aware of the significance of every object and shadow. The soft light from the crevice above shifted as the afternoon sun moved, illuminating carvings on the stone walls that depicted seasons, wildlife, and subtle patterns that seemed almost alive in the gentle glow. Ethan ran his fingers over a bundle of maps and letters, each tied carefully with faded ribbon, absorbing the deliberate thought, observation, and intention captured in each line of text and sketch. The maps illustrated not just trails and clearings in the surrounding forest, but also small details of the landscape that suggested careful study and intimate familiarity with the land. Scout nudged Ethan toward a low shelf containing small carved figures, wooden tokens, and handcrafted instruments, each item arranged with meticulous care and patience, reflecting a devotion to preservation and reflection that spanned decades. Ethan examined each object slowly, appreciating the thought, skill, and deliberate attention that had been invested in their creation, and he felt a profound connection to the life and mind of the person who had assembled them. The chamber seemed to resonate with a quiet energy, the subtle vibration beneath the stone floor aligning with his own heartbeat, a gentle reminder that this space was alive with memory, intention, and the legacy of attentive care. He opened a journal, running his gloved fingers over the delicate, yellowed pages, reading passages that recounted observations of the forest, reflections on time, and stories of small, kind acts extended to visitors, neighbors, and the creatures inhabiting the land. Each word carried a weight and purpose, communicating lessons of patience, loyalty, and thoughtful attention that transcended the decades separating him from the writer. Scout shifted, pressing his head gently against Ethan's leg, and he felt the bond between them deepen, a quiet affirmation that loyalty, companionship, and instinct had guided him to this space of profound discovery. Ethan moved to a section of the chamber where a subtle glow hinted at another hidden compartment, and Scout's attentive presence guided him to a panel that concealed a shallow alcove. Inside, more bundles of letters, carved objects, and small tools were neatly arranged, each piece conveying purpose and precision, a silent testament to care and thoughtfulness preserved over generations. The soft ambient light highlighted every surface, casting shadows that shifted and danced across the walls, revealing the intricate detail in the carvings and the delicate arrangements of the artifacts. Outside, the forest whispered through the pines, the sunlight catching on frost and snowflakes, sending tiny reflections dancing across the chamber floor, illuminating the carvings, journals, and carefully preserved objects. Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and connection, understanding that he was witnessing the continuation of a legacy that valued attention, patience, and quiet miracles, a space where the past spoke clearly to those willing to listen. Scout nudged him again, and he followed, noticing a low platform where a bundle of cloth-covered items rested. Ethan lifted the cloth carefully, revealing maps, letters, and small carved figures, each infused with intention, care, and the lessons of observation and patience. He realized that every step of his journey, guided by Scout's instincts and loyalty, had led him to a place of reflection, understanding, and discovery, where every object carried meaning, every shadow told a story, and every subtle vibration in the stone connected him to the enduring power of quiet dedication. The chamber, filled with light, scent, and the gentle presence of Scout, felt alive with history, intention, and the careful preservation of a life devoted to observation, patience, and small, deliberate acts of kindness. And Ethan understood in that moment that he was part of the continuum of care, insight, and quiet miracles that had waited patiently for someone to bear witness to their significance. Ethan finally rose from the stone floor, Scout standing loyally by his side, tail low but steady, and the two of them moved toward the chamber exit, carrying with them a quiet sense of fulfillment and understanding. The ambient light from the narrow crevice above had softened into a warm, golden hue, casting delicate patterns on the walls and illuminating the intricate carvings and carefully preserved artifacts that had held their stories for decades. Each step Ethan took resonated lightly against the stone, echoing softly through the chamber as if the space itself were acknowledging his presence, and Scout's padded paws followed with quiet assurance, a steady rhythm that reminded him of the trust and companionship that had guided him here. He paused near the low platform where the most precious objects had rested, brushing his hand lightly over the carved surfaces and feeling the lingering energy of care, intention, and quiet devotion that had infused the chamber for generations. Outside, the wind whispered gently through the surrounding pines, carrying the crisp scent of snow and frost, and the soft glimmer of sunlight reflected off icy branches, casting fleeting patterns across the entrance to the chamber. Ethan inhaled deeply, taking in the combined aromas of stone, aged wood, cedar, and the faint traces of herbs, allowing himself a moment of reflection on the journey that had led him here, guided by Scout's unerring instincts and the subtle signals of the mountain itself. As they ascended the spiral staircase back into the upper chamber, Ethan could feel a sense of completion, an understanding that he had witnessed not merely objects and writings, but the embodiment of patience, care, and the quiet miracles of attentive living. Scout paused at the top of the stairs, glancing back toward the hidden depths they had explored, amber eyes reflecting both intelligence and a gentle pride, as if affirming that their work here was done for now, but that the chamber's story would continue to resonate through those who respected and honored it. Ethan stepped out into the main room of the cabin, the soft afternoon sunlight illuminating the worn wooden beams, frost-dusted floors, and the quiet stillness that had defined the space for years. He ran his hand over the edge of a table, feeling the texture of the wood and imagining the hands that had shaped, preserved, and cared for it. And he felt a deep sense of gratitude for the continuity of thought, intention, and reflection embedded in every object. Scout nudged him gently, prompting Ethan to look out a narrow window at the surrounding forest, where the sun glimmered on the snow and the wind whispered through the pines, creating a symphony of light, movement, and sound that seemed almost alive. Ethan stood there for a long moment, absorbing the serenity of the scene, the loyal presence of Scout, and the realization that every small act of care and attention, preserved through time, had led him to this point of understanding. and profound connection. He carefully closed the cabin door behind them, feeling the weight of the mountain and the hidden chambers they had explored, carrying within him the lessons of patience, reflection, and enduring intention. Scout pressed close to his side, and together they stepped out into the forest, the snow crunching softly beneath their boots and paws, the sunlight shimmering across the landscape, and Ethan felt a quiet sense of belonging, purpose, and the gentle, lasting impact of small acts of devotion, knowing that the chamber, the artifacts, and the preserved history would continue to resonate, inspiring reflection and appreciation for the subtle, enduring miracles of attentive, faithful living.